Hey everybody, it's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R chat for Sunday, December 1st, 2013. Let's start by flashing back to the athletic club at the very end of Friday's show, at the very beginning of Monday's show. Nick and Dylan are going to blows. They are ready to punch each other's faces in. Nikki throws herself into the middle of their fight and declares, "Dylan is my son." And it's almost like a wave of cold, like a cold front just wafts over the crowd. Everybody's sort of frozen in time for this minute, like, what the heck is she talking about? Everyone is looking at Nikki like she's insane. Like she's gone over the edge, she's sick in the head. Everyone is treating her immediately like, okay, darling, everything, your mom, alrighty. No one believes her, not Victor, and certainly not Dylan. Dylan is like, okay, well, I'm glad I met you, lady, but I'm not your son. And he's ready to walk out the door when she stops him by calling out his mother's maiden name. She believes that this is the one tiny little piece of proof that she has that might, might snap him into realizing that her story is actually true. And she begins to just tell him little pieces of the story. The situation is so frantic that she's not able to present it in a really cohesive manner. She's just sort of throwing everything she can out onto the wall to see if it will stick for him. She tells Dylan that his father did not know that he was adopted, that the mother didn't tell him, that Dylan's mother was essentially lying to him and to the father. And Dylan snaps. He's like, are you calling my mother a liar? I mean, not only are you making this outrageous accusation that I'm your son, but you somehow now have information about my family and are besmirching my mother's name. Dylan has his mother on a pedestal, especially since it sounds like she passed away fairly early. She was the first parent that he lost, and so he really thinks that she could do no wrong, and here Nikki is telling him a different story. She begins to recap her story, everything from the beginning, how his mother essentially adopts the child and told Dylan's father that it's his, and it's too much. It's all true in Nikki's mind and in this world. It's all the truth, but Dylan can't handle it. He walks out. He has Avery with him, thank goodness she's able to stay with him, but he leaves. Nikki is just left in the rubble of this lie. Everything that she has been building toward for the past several months has now erupted, and she's just left to deal with the consequences. The Newmans are all standing there like, what just happened? Everyone is totally in shock. They all sort of go back to the dinner table. Like, I cannot even believe what just happened here. And Nikki is crying. This is not how she wanted this information to be given to her family or to Dylan. I was very surprised. I thought that Victor was being surprisingly tender toward her in that moment. He is shocked, of course, that she never told him anything about this. She never once mentioned in all the years that they've been together that she had a son. This is a secret that she kept from him, and furthermore, it's obviously something that was a really a source of pain for Nikki. And Victor is, although he's trying to be supportive, he is also offended a little bit that she didn't tell him and let him help her. That was one of the things he said. You didn't trust me to tell you that. You didn't trust me with this information. I could have helped you. I could have been the very only person that could have helped you through this. So Victor's having his own reaction. Victoria was being very, very empathetic and concerned, even as Nikki sort of started trying to tell her story in a little bit more of a composed manner to her family. Victoria was, listening really intently, feeling, I think, very empathetic toward what her mother had gone through. And this was obviously a terrible situation, having had this sexual relationship with a cult leader, having gotten pregnant by him, and having to have been forced into this position of giving the child away. Victoria identifies with that immediately and feels terrible for her mother. Although I think it's shocking to Victoria too. Everyone wants to be supportive, but they can't help but have their own reactions and realize how this is going to impact their life. Victoria goes home after this whole scene, and she goes immediately to the refrigerator, comes out into the living room where Billy is sitting, and she starts throwing back this beer like a pro, like trying to recap, like just telling Billy through gulps. She hands him one too, and she's telling him through gulps of the beer that Dylan is actually now her brother. Billy nearly lost his beer. He practically spit it out of his mouth as soon as she let that out. It was just really funny and cute. Victoria's reaction was a little bit more lighthearted than the other Newmans. Nick, of course, is annoyed beyond belief. Even back at the athletic club before everyone sort of parted ways, Nick is having this very selfish reaction. He is only seeing this as another way that Dylan is ruining my life. This man is usurping my family in every conceivable way, and now this. He ended up sitting down at the bar and having a drink too. He's throwing him back. Like, it's funny because there was a scene, I think maybe a day or two later, where he ends up having to go to his office to have a private moment to compose himself, and he's throwing down the scotch. And then later, I think in that same episode, Dylan goes back to the bar and he's having a double at the bar too. It's just, it's striking to me that the answer to dealing with issues in this family is to drink, which is like the one thing that Nikki can't do. It's a little bit of a shame that as Nikki is trying to process this whole situation for herself, she really has to take the time to help everyone else around her process it too. And she later, after the athletic club, goes home to be with Victor, and she is trying to explain to him where she was coming from and trying to make sure that he doesn't take offense any more than he already has. She tells him, it was not about trying to keep a secret from you. In many ways, it was me trying to keep a secret from myself. It was something that I blocked out about my past, and I just wanted to go on as if it hadn't happened. And yes, maybe throughout the years it popped into my head here or there, but it wasn't until Catherine really forced the issue for me that I decided to pursue it. And Victor, I was sort of surprised by his reaction. I can understand why he would have been resentful about it. It's a very real, deep secret that his wife was keeping from him. And not only that, but Nikki had admitted that all of the charity work she had been doing within the past couple of months wasn't really charity work. It was her trying to get to the bottom of this mystery, finding her son. And I can understand why Victor would be resentful about that, although there's really nothing he can do about it now. Sorry, Victor, this classifies as a situation that you can do nothing about. And Nikki just asks him very kindly and quietly to accept it. And I feel like I have to give Victor credit for not having a big explosion. That's what you would have expected from Victor, that he would have got indignant and left her, but he really didn't do that. It seems like Victor's reaction is he is offended that Nikki didn't tell him, but it seems to run a little bit deeper that this McAvoy fellow has screwed over Nick. It's really not that Nikki had a son as much as that it's Dylan. Victor feels a sense of loyalty to Nick. as he should. I think I can understand where Victor's coming from in that regard. He is understanding to a point. Victor is not being entirely supportive, though, either. There was this scene at the ranch where he's kind of telling her, look, sorry to break it to you, but Dylan doesn't really want to have anything to do with you, even if you want to have anything to do with him. Nikki insists that she's going to try to forge a relationship with Dylan, and I was very happy to see her make the comparison between when Adam came into Victor's life and, how all of that worked out. And if Victor, part of the reason that caused the discord in the Newman family when Adam came into it was that Victor decided to hoist Adam above his children that he had known since birth. Nick and Victoria had worked so hard at Newman Enterprises, and Adam comes in and Victor immediately gives him sort of preferential treatment just because he's a Newman, and that caused the rest of the family to resent him, and Nikki doesn't plan on making that same mistake. So I was glad that she had a point to make toward him in that way. Like, you had a child that came back into our lives too, even though, of course, Victor knew about Adam for his entire life. But I was glad to see that Nikki didn't just take it. She didn't just roll over. She was able to present her side of the situation to Victor, and eventually she's going to be able to do the same with Nick and with Victoria. Although I think Victoria seems to be the one who's taking it best. There is a scene, Victor ends up going to the office. I'm sure it was less about getting work done and more about just gathering his thoughts. Victor probably needed to gaze out the window while having his drink, his tequila or whatever he's drinking, and just let all of this new information soak in when Victoria comes to the office and she tries to talk to Victor. She tries to smooth things out a little bit. Victor tells Victoria he thinks Nikki should have just kept on keeping this a secret. Maybe it would have been better if she just wouldn't have told us at all for Nick's sake. Again, Victor's loyalty is very much with Nick. But Victoria makes an excellent point. She says, well, what is it? Are you mad that Mom decided to keep this, are you mad that she kept the secret, or are you mad that she didn't keep the secret? So which is it? And Victor indignantly says back, maybe I just want to be mad. He's entitled to his feelings about it too. It seems a little bit like Victor is being supportive to Nikki's face, but sort of brooding behind her back, feeling resentful about it. But I'm wondering if Victoria is going to end up being the bridge for everyone here. I think she seems to have a respect for Dylan. She seems to like him. He's been a good friend to Billy, so that I think Victoria is going to be the go-between for everyone in the Newman family, asking them to slowly, little by little, accept Dylan. And I'm proud of Victoria, at least, for not making this all about her. That would have been, if I had to predict what Victoria's reaction would be, I would imagine that she would have made it all about her too. And oh my gosh, how could you do this to us, Mom? How could you keep this secret from us? But no, Victoria's been very understanding, and why not? It's not like when Adam came into their lives. Victoria has nothing to fear from Dylan. As long as Dylan has no plans of getting involved in Newman Enterprises, Dylan's not a threat to Victoria. After the blow up at the athletic club, Dylan runs off with Avery, of course. He's in total denial. He doesn't want to believe that this just happened or that it may be true. It must be some weird fluke that Mrs. Newman found out all of this extra information about my family, my mother's maiden name, until Avery has to confess to Dylan that it's true and that she knew about it the entire time. And Dylan immediately is like, I can't believe this. I just got over all of these lies with Chelsea. Now you lied to me too. I'm having to conceptualize the idea that my sainted mother lied to me. He doesn't want to have anything to do with anyone in that moment, least of all Avery, as she's trying to present her side of the story, but she does. She tells him, Nikki backed me into a corner. I didn't have a choice because of client attorney privilege, I couldn't tell you this as much as I wanted to, but I'm here for you now. I want to support you. I understand what you're going through as much as anyone can, and after this whole big, blow up, I think that Dylan started to accept it pretty readily. It had to have been Avery's involvement that helped him accept it at least as true, but he is still insisting on a DNA test. He is not just going to take all of this at face value. He needs proof, understandably. But in the meantime, Dylan goes into this questioning of himself with Avery as witness. He's sort of talking aloud, essentially questioning the very foundation of his existence. Who am I? Who is my father? And that's a really good question. And Avery just says, I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, you have legitimate questions that need to be answered. And so Dylan decides to go out to the ranch and visit Nikki, who is alone. He just shows up at the door, and she was not expecting that. I think she probably expected never to hear from him, at least for a while, maybe bump into him awkwardly in public. But here he is on her doorstep, and he wants answers. He says right off the bat, I want a DNA test. And she says, of course, whenever you're ready to do that, that's fine. But I know what the results are going to be. This is the fact. We're going to need to work together toward working it out. And Dylan just has so many questions. His whole world is rocked. He actually did ask for information about who his real father is. He's a cult leader. We know he's a cult leader. Nikki tried to cushion it a little bit, say that he was the leader of a spiritual group, but then she breaks down and says, yeah, it was a cult. It was a cult. And it tries to explain what the circumstance was around Dylan's birth, that it wasn't really consensual. It wasn't really, planned, one or the other. And so Nikki, I think, realized right away that Dylan took that to heart. Your father was essentially a really horrible man who I didn't want to have a baby with. And Dylan is taking that personally right away. She tries to tell him, you're nothing like your father, or, trust me. But Dylan had this moment where he responded and says, you don't even know me. Maybe I'm just like him. Maybe I'm just like my father. Maybe I am actually a bad guy. And I kind of loved that moment. I actually said out loud, I was like, whoa. We see Dylan as this hero character. That's how he's been built up to be. And I've been really hoping we were going to see a dark side of him. Something to make him a little more three-dimensional, a little more interesting. And there was just this brief moment where the darkness flared up in his eyes, and I just saw it and thought, ooh, that could be good. Nikki tries to bring him back, tries to tell him a little bit about her side of the family. And not only that, but Dylan's grandfather was this horrible man. I believe he tried to rape her, and Nikki ended up killing him. So there's some real darkness in this family. And Dylan is very cold at learning all of this information. He straight up tells her, look, even if I wanted or needed a family, it wouldn't be yours. And he kind of disconnects and leaves her. And now Nikki's dream of having this big, full family together is crushed. And instead, she and Victor are spending Thanksgiving alone. Victoria and Billy have their own suffering. Nick does not want to come to Thanksgiving dinner. And you can forget about Dylan deciding to pick up a turkey leg and break bread with Victor. And it's all blown to pieces, which is not what she had in mind at all. I guess it was nice. The only good thing was seeing Victor come home as Nikki's crying from this confrontation between she and Dylan. And Victor just really sweetly tells her that he loves her and that he's never going to leave her. So the one thing that I'm thankful for in this big mess is that Victor ultimately decides to be supportive of Nikki, even if he can't be supportive of Dylan. Nick goes straight to Sharon's house and he ends up telling her everything that happened at this family dinner and that he has this new brother who he refuses to accept. He is not going to have it. He is not going to acknowledge that Dylan is his brother in any way, shape, or form. But Sharon really roped him in. Sharon had a totally different perspective on it. And I think I think that Nick said something like, this changes nothing, and Sharon just looked at him and said, oh no, this changes everything. Now Dylan is Faith's uncle, not to mention that Dylan and Billy are friends, which makes this whole situation a whole lot easier for Victoria. So Nick is the one that's really on the outside here now, and Sharon has insight enough to say to him, what it is that Dylan could end up having really good and positive relationships with the people that you're close to, and that's what's eating at you. That he may legitimately become close with people and members of your family one day, and that's what's threatening to you. I loved it. I loved that Sharon called him out. It was so wonderful. And not only that, but Sharon ended up mentioning that she feels empathy for Nikki in all of this. She didn't just focus in on Nick. She really zeroed in on what Nikki must be going through. Even though they're not friends, they're rivals, but Sharon had to go through a situation where she had a daughter and then let her go. I think Cassie ended up living with Millie, who I don't know. I don't know if it was a grandmother or a relation or if Millie had adopted Cassie. I can't remember exactly who Sharon left Cassie with. Maybe you guys can remind me of that. But then all of a sudden Sharon started realizing that she needed to find her daughter, and she was confronted with having to tell Nick the truth, that she had a daughter from before she even met him. So Sharon identified with Nikki and was able to present that to Nick, which I think got him out of his own head for the first time. Up until now, it was all about, how does this affect me, Nick? But Sharon, I think, made him think about what his mother was actually going through. So maybe that was a tiny itty bitty breakthrough moment. I don't know. Nick is still not ready to go to the Thanksgiving dinner and pretend that everything is fine. So he asks Sharon if it would be okay if they just had Thanksgiving dinner with Faith instead. And I thought that was kind of cute. Noah ends up showing up, and it was nice to see the whole family together, even though there was this 800-pound gorilla in the room. But it was nice to see them breaking bread and being cute and being a family. Of course, there was only one Newman child that was missing from this picture. Faith ended up mentioning Summer. Hey, remember her? She is a part of this family too. And the look on Sharon's face is just... it's like Sharon doesn't want to acknowledge what she actually did. She wants to move on and feel better, but not have to make recompense for what she did and is doing actively to Summer. I mean, I hate to burst your happy family moment, Sharon, but do you remember how you're keeping Nick's child away from him? Noah is at the underground this week. Presumably he's still picking up shifts and working there. I don't know. He was at the underground when Sharon showed up and asked about how his job is going, and Noah couldn't help. I mean, what's he been there for a week, 2 weeks, and he is already having trouble. He couldn't hide the fact when Sharon asked him that that the waters are not quite as smooth as maybe he would have liked them to be. I think Noah would have preferred to have been ushered into the company just as on a red carpet, and that is not how it works. Noah told Sharon that he's concerned that Kyle is gonna come right in there and show him up because he has an MBA. He has a fancy business degree, and Noah feels insecure about that. But I'm telling you, Noah does not know the score at all. At the end of the day, Noah's last name is Newman, and that's all he needs to get ahead in that company. Why don't you pick up the phone and dial Neil if you need some reassurance on that. Neil busted his butt for that company for who knows how long, only to have either Nick or Victoria or Adam end up taking the lead. So at the end of the day, if you're a Newman, you're fine, trust me. But next week, we're going to start to see that Noah and Kyle feud flare up, and I am looking forward to that. I really am. I think we're getting into the direction that I need us to be. I like being at Newman Enterprises. I want to see Victor's office. I want to see those boardrooms, and I want to see a really compelling corporate storyline where Kyle and Noah are going head to head. I think that's going to be great. Now, Sharon has already been down this road. She was hoping that her son wouldn't have to, but she's trying to keep her lips shut about her negative experience at Newman while giving Noah a pep talk. So she tries to shift the conversation a little bit, talking about his relationship with Courtney, and she talks about herself in relationships a little bit, saying that she misses having all of those firsts with someone, and which is kind of ironic because after Sharon leaves, Noah is arranging his own first for he and Courtney. He's at the underground and he puts up all of these candles and he decides to put on his tuxedo or his suit or whatever that she bought him, I think, and buys a dress for Courtney, which is true Newman style. Buy in your lady a dress. Of course, he's got this Newman salary now, and they're all dressed up and having kind of a candlelit romantic evening. And it's of course going to lead to sex. I thought maybe they were already sleeping together, but apparently no. Apparently this is their first time, and Noah assumes that it's Courtney's first time too. And he said something to her like, well, I think your first time should be special. And Courtney had to slyly say, yeah, my first time wasn't that special. I'm not quite as innocent as you think I am. I don't know what it is that's super dark in Courtney's past, but I love it and I want to know what it is. I love that he thought she was a virgin and she's not. So they went up to Nick's office upstairs, which has a bed or a couch or something. That's pretty special. And they consummated that little relationship. On the side, Summer is out in Chancellor Park in late November on a photo shoot with this other model. And the photographer is being really, really mean to her, like borderline abusive. He's being verbally abusive toward her, just kind of putting her down, sort of acting like she's not doing her job. Not only that, but they've got, like, for whatever it is, the photo shoot, I suppose they're trying to pretend they got caught in a rainstorm or something, so they've got her hair wet, and it's cold. It is cold in Wisconsin at the end of November. She's in this little dress, so she's cold and wet, and this photographer is being so mean to her, and Summer's trying to not complain. She doesn't want to be this bratty diva, daughter's boss character, so she just tries to go along with it, but she's getting like frostbite on her fingers when Sharon ends up strolling through the park and happens upon the whole situation. And Sharon knows what this is like. Sharon has been a spokesmodel for, I think Wishbone or Newman, I can't remember what line she was a spokesperson for, but she helps her. Sharon sees that Summer is kind of suffering, so she goes to the craft service table and she finds these warmers, like these hand warmers, and tells Summer to put them in her shoes. And it's just a nice little tip to help Summer get through this. But not only did Sharon give Summer the feet warmer tip, but she also gave that photographer a piece of her mind. She walked right up to the photographer and just was like, what do you think you're doing here? Do you know who this is? You're gonna have these kids out here in wet in this December weather? How do you think that, are you prepared for when she gets frostbite and has to go to the hospital? I mean, she really laid into this photographer, pretty much rescues Summer from a tough situation, takes her out of there, says this shoot is over, takes her to Crimson Lights to get her this hot chocolate and sort of warm her up and get her back to normal, walks up to Neil, gives him, who happens to be there, gives him a piece of her mind, says, do you know what your photographer is having Summer do? And do you realize that there are legal implications for this? Which is very true. Leslie confirmed that, like, yeah, that somebody should be there on site with these these kids in this dangerous situation, they should have some kind of legal counsel there. Of course, Neil ends up calling Jack and telling him what happened, but we'll talk about that later, because I felt like I really enjoyed the little interaction between Sharon and Summer. Summer gets her hot chocolate, and Summer and Sharon sit down in a booth and they start talking, and I really liked seeing Sharon in charge and being the good guy for once and sticking up for Summer. And Summer remarks about like Sharon being so fierce that it reminded me of my mom. Here Summer is without the strong female role model in her life, and she needs that. She desperately needs that. And Sharon comes in and kind of rescues her, and I loved seeing Sharon in that role. Now it's just time for Sharon to get this ridiculous lie off her chest. Tell the truth. It's time to tell the truth. Lauren goes to visit Michael in prison, and it was really sad. Lauren is concerned about him, of course. She's concerned about her son. This is just as hard on Lauren as it is on Michael and Fen. She doesn't know what could be happening to her loved ones in prison, and every time she goes to visit them, it seems like the situation becomes worse. So it's really hard for her to maintain positivity while all this is going on, and Michael is trying so hard to be strong for her, telling her just to, like making little jokes, trying to keep her spirits up, and it was just clear from that scene that there's still a lot of love there, a lot of love in their relationship. After Lauren leaves, Paul and Chris show up, and they'd like to have a moment alone with Michael to deliver what they think should be wonderful news. The judge has decided to revisit the whole case of Carmine's death, and they've decided they want to release Michael from prison. It should be joyous. That should be such a happy thing, but Michael is not having it. He doesn't want to leave his son in prison. He feels like he's there to protect him. It is so not long game for Michael to not be happy about getting out of jail. Ben is serving out a 1 month long sentence, and Michael's looking at 10 years. Get your ass out of prison if you can, and wait out the last couple of weeks of Fenn's drug sentence. This is so blah, blah, blah to me, but whatever. The case is reopened, and Michael is let go. He's a free man, which I don't even know how plausible that really is. He confessed to the crime. Sorry for any noise on this recording. Again, neighbor on the right is blowing leaves. Neighbor on the left is building a barn. So you may be hearing alternating bzz, bzz, bzz sounds with bang, bang, hammer sounds. I apologize. So irritating. Anyway, Chloe and Kevin are going to the Chancellor mansion for Thanksgiving, and it's been an incredibly bad year for everyone in that family. Not only did Chloe and Kevin just lose Delia, but this is the first Thanksgiving without Catherine, and it's not the same without Catherine. But I was really happy to see Jill coming up and being the lady of the house. She insists that they're gonna go ahead and celebrate Thanksgiving anyway. Even though no one really wanted to, there's not a whole lot to celebrate. There doesn't feel like there's a whole lot to be thankful for, but Jill insists that that's what Catherine would do. That's what Catherine would want us to do, and it is what Catherine would have wanted. There was this just moment where everybody was sort of remarking about how Jill was sounding like Catherine and the inspirational things she was saying, and Jill just said, like, I may have had my issues with her, but once in a while she knew what she was talking about. Tear. I totally welled up in that moment just remembering Catherine and everyone at the party. It was Jill and Esther and Kevin and Chloe, and they were sitting around thinking about all of the things that they're thankful for, and they started remembering Catherine, and Y&R showed this flashback of Catherine a couple of Thanksgivings ago giving an emotional speech, just talking about how much she loves her family and how much she's grateful for them, and it was nice just to see her face again. And then the doorbell rings and Lauren shows up. She walks through the door. She's having a really hard time right now, and she needed to be with her family, who is Jill. She just needed to be surrounded by people who love her and care about her, and it was like the Chancellor Mansion was like the place to be for if you need a support group on Thanksgiving, because the holidays are, especially the first holiday after you've lost someone, that's the hardest time. It really is hard to go through holidays where, especially when you've lost someone who's a head of a family, it's hard to pick it up and move on and go on with it. And so everybody who was there had lost someone, and they were coming together to get solace from one another in that, and I enjoyed it. And it was sad, but there was also some comedic moments, because Jill makes mention to, like, okay, well, Esther will get ready for that turkey you're making, and Esther just looks at her and says, "What turkey?" Esther did not make a turkey. She's like, why would I make a turkey? You said you were handling everything. And Jill's like, the kitchen is your domain. Why would you not make a turkey this year? It was kind of funny. They all ended up having to order out for Chinese food instead, and it was like the traditional Chinese food Thanksgiving dinner. It was kind of cute around the coffee table, and at the end of the dinner, everyone had a fortune cookie, and they all went around in a circle, opened up the fortune cookie, and every saying that was inside was somehow relevant to that person, and it gave them a little bit of hope, a little bit of something to carry on, a little bit of wisdom. And finally we get around to Lauren, who's the last one. She opens up her fortune cookie and it says something like, "The truth will set you free." And just as she opens it and reads it and says that aloud, Michael walks through the door, a free man, like a miracle. She runs and holds him in her arms, thankful for this miracle. It was a nice reunion moment, and now, gosh, one miracle down, one to go. This Thanksgiving, Billy is having a really hard time. Of course, he has all of these bad thoughts going through his head. He's thinking about revenge. He's thinking about the gun in the closet, and he decides that he needs to go to a meeting. So he goes to this group therapy meeting, and everyone's sort of talking a little bit too new agey for him. The person that's leading the group is giving him a little bit too much, words of wisdom and not enough practical advice. And so he just decides, you know what, this isn't right for me. I don't want to hear forgiveness, is what it boils down to. I want to hear action and revenge. That's what I'm into right now. So he gets up and leaves the group meeting, but guess what? Kelly, his new lady friend, is there, and she gets up and follows him out the room. She's taking a personal interest in Billy. They're becoming friends, and she wants to help him through this, but she's single. She's single, and he's reaching out looking for someone who understands, and I think they're going to be getting closer and closer. Definitely worried about Billy and Victoria's relationship. Well, while Billy is mourning this loss, Chelsea and Adam are celebrating a first. It's Connor's first Thanksgiving, and they're at the condo, and Chelsea is thrilled that her son can see. She has so much to be grateful for this Thanksgiving, and she's with the baby at the table making a finger paint turkey, insisting to Adam that, oh yeah, your infant son did this picture. Isn't he genius? Which wasn't even the best part of it. The best part of it was that Chelsea had the baby dressed up in this adorably derpy turkey outfit. Like it was the baby as a turkey with all of these feathers and little flippers on his feet, and it was kind of funny and kind of adorable. And Chelsea and Adam are sitting around just enjoying their son, basking in this moment of joy and love and hope for the future. And Adam begins to talk about the holidays that he had as a kid with Hope, and all of the derpy things he had to wear and put on and do. And Chelsea ended up bringing up the last Thanksgiving. I guess last Thanksgiving they were married. It seems like so long ago that they were married, and at that horrible house, that old decrepit old mansion house that they had, dark and far away from everyone else in Genoa City. But they apparently were married last Thanksgiving, and they were going through the end stages of their marriage. Chelsea was feeling insecure about Adam's interest in Sharon, taking her to keep hiding her on the property, taking special care of her, and Chelsea was very jealous about that, and Adam apologized for it. He admitted that it was the wrong thing to do, and it really was what put the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. I think Adam and Chelsea could have overcome quite a bit, but him taking that special interest in Sharon really fed into where her insecurities were in the first place. Not to mention, she just wanted Adam all to herself. She didn't want him with Sharon, being a friend, didn't want him, well, he was doing the wrong thing anyway, in my opinion. But I don't think what he did to Chelsea was right with the Sharon thing. But also she didn't really want him involved in Newman Enterprises. So there was a couple of things that were wrong in their relationship. But Chelsea remarks that she's feeling like she's in a different place today than she was a year ago. And there were several moments between Chelsea and Adam where you just see this I don't know, glimmer of love in her eyes, where she's looking at him and maybe seeing the man that she used to love, seeing the man that she married. And there was this scene where Chelsea and Adam and the baby take a family photo, and you can see in Chelsea's eyes that she's finding her old feelings coming flooding back as they're being a family, having this intimacy. She's seeing all of this love in Adam's eyes for his child, and she, I'm sure, feels guilty for keeping him away from that. But now I think she's really seeing them as a family, and even physically like calling them a family. This was our first family portrait together. Isn't that cute? And it's just becoming clear that Chelsea is looking at Adam, and she's now seeing all of this good in him. The problem is when Adam looks in the mirror, all he can see is bad. The Abbotts are gearing up for their Abbott family Thanksgiving. Thank you, Y&R. I love seeing the Abbotts together. It makes me so happy. And somebody mentions, like, wonder where Ashley is today. And oh, guess what? She walks through the door with her suitcase. I just love her so much. I was so happy. I mean, you know me. Out loud, I'm like, yay, as soon as she walks through the door, gracing us with her smile and her beauty and her little dress and her hair. I love her so much. It was really good to see her. It ties the family together. I want to see that bonding. I want to see Tracy and Jack and Ashley all together. I'm surprised they didn't have John show up as a ghost. I guess I can only use that trick every so often. But it wasn't, Abby was there. Abby was there with Tyler. That was sort of Tyler's first Abbott family holiday event. And he, I think, was feeling a little out of place, in part because he never really had this close-knit family that he's seeing exists in Abby's family. But not only that, he's getting more text messages from Mariah. Mariah is not taking no for an answer. He's told her that he's moved on. He's told her that he's in love with somebody, and she's still really coming hard on him. She's really trying to get it back together with him. I want to know if they're going to cast her. I think I heard that Summer's going to get a friend that's going to be cast. Could that be her? Maybe not. Maybe she would be too young. I'm not sure. But it's clear that it's making Abby very uncomfortable, even from a distance. Even though Mariah only exists in text messages at this point, Abby is bothered by it, and she has a little scene alone with her mom where she talks to her about it and says, this is what's going on. It's fine, of course, but it does sort of bother me. And I don't know. I thought it was actually a pretty decent scene. I actually did not hate Abby for a split second. I feel like Eileen Davidson just has a way of making me like whoever she's in the scene with. So I even liked Abby in that moment. It was kind of nice. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen between Abby and Tyler's relationship. He pretty much said out loud and declared that he loved her at the family event. So I don't know if he's going to propose to her soon or what. I don't know if they're going to cast Mariah. I am not sure. Did anybody else notice that Tyler was like busting out of the shirt he was wearing? He had on a button-up dress shirt and a vest, and it did not fit him at all. Like, it was too small. Like, his muscles looked like they were gonna Hulk style start like bust out of the shirt, or like one of the buttons was gonna fly out because his pecs are so tight. And then he's like all jammed into this little vest. I felt bad for him. Like, I guess maybe that was the point. Maybe they were just trying to make him look extra beefcakey, because even after he left, Summer mentioned, he's hot. So Abby definitely has herself a hot boyfriend for sure. Oh boy, Ashley's presence just makes everything better. Kyle was there as well, I forgot to say that, with his new hair, which is a little greasy. I like the shorter hair, but it needs to just bring the grease down a little bit. Like, it doesn't have to be pomade city. Just because it's short doesn't mean you have to have it slicked back. Let's pull it back on the pomade, okay? But it was kind of cool because Kyle had mentioned something about Victor, and Ashley picked up on it right away, realized that he's working for Newman Chancellor, and she sees through the whole thing right away. She immediately knew that, well, either Victor hired you because you're extremely talented or because you serve a purpose. And there was just this moment between them where, you know, they realized it was the latter. Ashley is no dummy at all. I think she's gonna go see Victor next week and maybe pry on Monday's show and maybe pry in as to what his intentions are with Kyle, because I guess she doesn't know the whole entire story. We need to get her back in here full time. Everybody knows I feel that way, but Summer and Jack, they decided to fly to, South Carolina, where Phyllis is in the facility, and spend Thanksgiving with her. But we pick up on them this week as they're flying back to Genoa City after this disappointing trip with Phyllis. It's very disheartening to sit there with her and talk to her and try to act like everything's okay, and she's just not waking up. All they want is for her to wake up. And they ended up getting back to Genoa City in time to experience the entire Abbott family Thanksgiving, which was wonderful. And there was this moment where Tracy brings in the Wishbone and she gives it to Summer and Jack, and they're both getting ready to pull it apart as part of tradition and make their wish, but they both say out loud, kind of, we know that we're both wishing for the same thing this year. They're wishing for Phyllis to wake up and come back, and in a way, I think maybe that's the same thing that the fans are wishing for. Neil is really trying to bring Leslie into his family. He wants her to feel like a part of family. I think he wants her to feel like his wife in some ways. And so he's trying to not only bring her to the Thanksgiving event, but he also wants specifically for Leslie to spend some time with Moses, his youngest son. Remember, do you guys remember Moses? You know, Neil has that other son. I wish they would bring Sophia back. I really do. I think it would be great to have Sophia give Leslie a run for her money. I liked Sophia. I don't know why they got rid of her in the first place. I like seeing Neil, and I mean, Moses is going to play an important role sooner or later in this show. I'd like to see his mother around a little bit more. But as the Thanksgiving day rolls around, everybody's at Neil's apartment, and Lily and Kane and their kids, and Leslie is trying to spend time with Moses, and she's bonding with Lily and kind of noting oh gosh, I'm bad today, noting Lily's mothering skills and how she is able to keep up with these two kids while Leslie's trying very hard just to bond with Neil's young son. And the whole scene was very, very nice and very cozy. And Tyler remarked, and I can't help wondering, are we hearing wedding bells in the distance? Okay, you guys, there we go. I hope that you enjoyed this week's show. Even though it was a short one, it was kind of slow-paced, kind of nice just to sit back and observe the inner relationships. It wasn't huge drama moves. It was nice to have just sort of seeing people interacting with one another. And even though, especially Wednesday's show, didn't have a whole lot of action, I enjoyed seeing the little Thanksgiving gatherings. I hope that you guys had a good holiday and that you enjoyed this week's show. And next week we should be back to a full week of YNR. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. So feel free to leave me your comments and let me know what you're thinking, predictions, anything you got. Lay it all down. I can't wait to see and hear and read. Okay, you guys, I love you. Everybody take care, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.